Tere, oleme Keskkonnaraadio eetris, aga täna räägime inglise keeles, sellepärast, et minu külaline on Rootsist. Ta on Per Högselius ja tuli konverentsile Tartus täna 27. märtsil oli siis tuumaenergiat puudutav konverents, kus erinevad ettekandjad ja panelistid rääkisid siis poolt ja vastu või siis ka lihtsalt informatiivset materjali tuumaenergia kohta. Hello, we are today here in Tartu and recording in university. Hello, Per. I'm very happy that you agreed to talk and of course that you could come to the conference. My first question is about you. How did you end up doing what you do?
Well, I started out as an engineering physics student once upon a time, but then over the years I have become more interested in the historical and social aspects of science and technology. Because I think there are many very important issues there that we need to know about, that we need to discuss, and we need to discuss them in a good way, which requires some research, right? To really understand what's going on, not only in science and technology as such, but in the relations between science, technology, and society and the environment, of course, also, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, today what I very much liked during the conference was that people really tried to explain and talk about different pro and contra, but not that am I against it or am I really wanting it? So I guess this is what you mean with this in a good way discussion.
Yes, exactly. I think in many nuclear debates, the climate of discussion is much too polarized, much too infected. I think we need to find ways to have a better discussion climate. I don't know about the discussion climate in Estonia here, but in Sweden and in many other European countries, it's much too polarized debate where people are not really able to listen to each other, not able to adapt to what they hear and adjust their minds when they hear something that is actually worth listening to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I think I, as an historian, can do to contribute to a better discussion climate.
Mm-hmm. Which are these topics or let's say corners in this nuclear discussion? What should be discussed, in your opinion?
Well, many issues. We should discuss the technology, of course, as such, but there are environmental aspects related to nuclear, which somehow not always come to the fore. Today I have tried to raise some issues related to coastal environments. What I have not talked about is fear of radioactive spills, which is of course something that is omnipresent. Now I don't know if anybody discussed the risk of nuclear disasters. Somehow that topic tends to come a little bit in the background these days in the European debate, I think. I mean, much of the debate now is about economics, I think, and the new technologies of small reactors, for example, small modular reactors. Are these going to work, or and are they better than the traditional big ones, and so on? So, I mean, there's a whole cluster of questions that we somehow need to consider, of course.
Mm-hmm. But what about fears? How should we talk about them during these discussions? How was it in Sweden, for example?
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of fear, but I think that if we look at the debates as they were carried out in the 1970s, 1980s, they were very much about fear of nuclear disasters, right? But maybe today that discussion has disappeared a bit. I think it's now it's more about economy, comparing nuclear energy with the renewable energy sources. Can we live without nuclear energy in an age where all fossil fuels have been are going to be phased out and so on? So I feel that we should maybe discuss more our fears, because nuclear energy will always be linked to an accident risk. We can try to make reactors that are as safe as possible. We can try to constantly improve safety, but we will never really get away from the fact that there is always a risk. There will always be a risk remaining. History shows that there can be accidents, and there can be very serious accidents. My guess would be that if you build a nuclear power plant in Estonia, the risk of a big nuclear disaster it will be very small. But there will be a risk. You cannot totally eliminate that risk. So in that sense, I would say that it's about a mental mindset, perhaps, or what kind of how do you think about life? How do you think about the world? Are you more of a gambler, thinking that if it seems that it's 99% safe, then okay, let's go for it. Let's take that risk. This 1% then which remains. Or are you more a person who want to see real safety? 100% safety. If this 1% risk, it's actually probably much less than that, right? But if this remaining risk is still something that troubles you and makes you fear the future and makes you feel unsafe, maybe then you will not feel good with nuclear energy, because there will always be this risk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this coastal environment, about what you told and how this will be affected. Could you tell about that a little bit for those people who are not here? Because I think this is something what is really not addressed enough. And I know that people who organized the conference really made an effort to find to find someone to talk about it, because the sea here is very important to take care of.
Yes, nuclear energy needs a lot of cooling water. Mm-hmm. So all nuclear power plants, they need to be built next to a big river or a lake, or preferably the sea. I would say the sea is the most popular place to build nuclear power plants. There you have unlimited access to cooling water, and we are talking about a lot of water. It's not small amounts. It's really very large flows. It's like a huge river actually flowing through every nuclear power plant. Typically, a reactor needs something like 50 cubic meters of water per second. Not per minute, right? 50 cubic meters per second. That's what we need. And this has to come from somewhere. So that's why we build nuclear power plants by the sea or a river. My guess would be that in Estonia you would build it somewhere on the coast. And then of course comes the question: how does this enormous flow of water impacts the coastal environment, the ecosystems, and so on.
One question here: this water comes from the sea, and what happens next with it?
It flows into the nuclear power plant. It's pumped through what is called the condenser, which cools the nuclear power plant. And then it is warmed. It picks up the heat. It becomes around 10 degrees warmer than before, and then this heated water is discharged back into the natural water body.
So it goes back, and then water comes all the time from the sea and goes back to the sea. So it's not some kind of closed system where you take the water and then it stays somehow there.
Yes, that's the case in what we call once-through cooling systems. That's the standard arrangement when you have a nuclear power plant by the sea. For many inland nuclear power plants, which are built on rivers or lakes, it's very common to have a recirculating cooling system, which is more of a closed loop. You can enable this with the help of cooling towers. These cooling towers they're much larger than the nuclear power plant itself. And we build them because they can reduce the amount of water that we need from the river or from the lake, sometimes by the sea also.
But why is this not used by the sea, this system? So that this heated water wouldn't go back to the sea?
Yeah, because on the seaside you have access to unlimited volumes of water. In most cases there is a feeling that you don't really need any cooling tower because there is so much water available. And now comes the question: what does this water do to the ecosystem there, right? Yeah, we refer to this phenomenon as thermal pollution. This is to say that the natural water body becomes much warmer than what is normal. And then this warmth, this heat, it of course has an impact on flora and fauna in the immediate vicinity of the cooling water outlet. So it's common to see that we have reduced vegetation on the bottom near the cooling water outlets. There may also be like algal blooms, which are sometimes problematic. But some algae they increase, where other algae they don't like the hot water. And if we talk about fish populations, there are some fish species which obviously like to live in warm water, whereas cold water species they have to go somewhere else. So in this way, what we see is a kind of re-engineering of the coastal ecosystem. It's clearly destructive in that place where it happens. It's clear that it's a kind of I would say a sacrifice zone that we get around the cooling water outlet. On the other hand, when nuclear energy was originally developed, there were fears that these impacts would be much greater than they have actually been. There were fears that there would be new kinds of diseases due to the hot water. There were fears that fish populations would be altered and changed over a vast territory, far beyond the nuclear power plants. But this has not happened actually. So in this sense, the effects are not as serious as was once feared.
But they are still big enough to be considered.
Yeah, locally, the effects are very very considerable. I should also mention that there are problems also with the cooling water inlet, so the place where the cooling water enters the nuclear power plant. This stream of water attracts many fish species which are caught in the sieving infrastructure, which is designed there to prevent debris from entering the nuclear power plant. So a number of tons of fish are every year caught in this sieving things there, and they are pretty big fish kills simply, which are difficult to avoid. I mean, it's impossible to prevent fish from swimming in the direction of the nuclear power plant. So that's a.
What do they do with those fishes?
Good question. Yeah, they can either be. They have to be cleaned away, and then they can either go back into the sea, or they can be delivered to some place where you can turn this biomass then into biogas or something like that.
So you can't eat them, basically.
No, we don't eat this fish. No.
Okay.
But is it then like somehow in a small scale climate change what is happening there because of the temperature rising on that water?
Yes, actually, scientists, biologists are very interested in this. They think this is super interesting because they think that this can tell us something about how marine and coastal ecosystems are going to change with climate change.
Mm-hmm.
So we have, for example, in Sweden something called the Biotest Lake, which is a place near Forsmark nuclear power plant. Which is built specifically to study the impact of the discharged cooling water, so hot cooling water coming out from the nuclear power plant, on the local ecosystem there. So now that place is very, very much used by scientists who want to explore future effects of climate change.
How big is that area in the water what is affected by this water?
I don't dare say exactly, but the Biotest Lake, for example, is a few square kilometers. It's not very big, but also not very small.
Okay, but if this power plant is built on a coast, how far this effect goes on water? Is it?
That depends very much on what the coast looks like, and also on the maritime currents. If there's a strong current in the water, you can more quickly remove the heat from or dissipate the heat that comes out from the nuclear power plant. But it's not a huge zone really. I don't dare say exactly how big it would be, but and I'm not a biologist, so I shouldn't say too much about it.
Okay. That is interesting. Somehow I caught myself thinking that wow, it's really interesting to look into it. But then you said about that sacrifice zones, and on the conference I wrote down that you asked that we should think that if we are ready to accept those sacrifice zones. How would you explain that in terms of ethics? Should we also somehow think about ethics towards other animals, fishes, life in the water?
Yes, we need to think about the consequences. We shouldn't think that nuclear energy has no environmental consequences. It does have in this local context. Many fish species and local ecosystems in the vicinity of the nuclear power plant, they will be very much affected. Things will be destroyed there. Animals will be killed. Their life rhythms will be transformed and disrupted in many ways. Right? So we have to acknowledge this. This is not to say that it cannot be accepted. But it's something we have to take into account. We have to weigh it against the advantages with nuclear energy. I mean, if we think that nuclear electricity is something that we really, really need, that it's something very valuable that can help our societies, that can help human life on Earth, then maybe we would come to the conclusion, okay, that it's worth sacrificing this local zones. But I would stress that there's no objective answer to that question. It will have to be it's something that we cannot calculate and arrive at through a mathematical formula. We have to discuss it with each other from different perspectives. What is valuable and how valuable is something like.
And are there technical options to minimize these effects to ecosystems and how they are used? If there are.
Yes, there are technical fixes, so to say, to fix a part of the effects. But it will never be perfectly possible to change things. This is something that nuclear operators have discussed for many years, together with marine biologists and experts in that field, those who know about how ecosystems work. Right? There have been attempts to install this or that technical arrangement to prevent fish losses, for example, in the cooling water intake. But often it's not possible. Often there is no real solution to that. And it would be naive to expect that we can somehow eliminate all problems in this context. We can also say that these technical fixes, they can also be problematic in their own right. Cooling towers, for example, they are a good technical fix if we want to come to grips with thermal pollution. Cooling towers, they enable the recirculation of the cooling water in such a way that there is a minimal impact on the sea. So the sea will not be heated to the extent that it would otherwise be. But cooling towers, they have their own impacts, which can be very negative. I mean, they totally change the appearance of a landscape when you see them, and they eject a lot of water vapor, kind of artificial clouds, which may be disturbing in one way or the other. So technical fixes, they can also be problematic. Right?
So you fix one problem, creating another one, then
exactly.
You need to fix that one and you create another one, and you have to see where you are okay to end fixing.
Yes, and another thing is that we can never really come to grips with everything. We have to accept that. And then we have the economic aspect. How much are we prepared to pay for these fixes? Right? Now, for example, in recent years there have been far-reaching investments in new safety systems in many nuclear power plants, especially on the coast. Not least after the Fukushima disaster, many nuclear operators in coastal regions, they have asked themselves, okay, are we really prepared for the unexpected here? And regulatory agencies, they have forced nuclear companies to build new, very advanced and very expensive safety systems, which then tend to make nuclear energy more expensive and less competitive vis-a-vis other energy sources.
On the conference, you also said that salty water is a problem for this nuclear power plant, but I think maybe you didn't tell too much about it. Could you widen that aspect?
Oh yeah, I mean seawater is very salty, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not so much in the Baltic Sea,
Yes.
but if you look at the high seas, the oceans, that's very salty water. And to the extent that water is salty, it's more problematic in a technical system, because salt it increases the risk of corrosion. So it means that, well, you might have to face risk that different pipes rupture, and that there might be a higher risk of radioactive leaks in such a setting. You can counter this, of course, by investing more in good materials for pipes and valves and so on. But we cannot get away from the fact that salty water is more problematic than fresh water. In the Baltic Sea, maybe that problem is not that big, but I'm not the expert on this. But I think it's more preferable in the Baltic Sea than in the oceans.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. About the heat, there were a lot of discussions today how much heat is going to waste, and also about that actually it could be maybe used, but it's too expensive, or how is it with that?
Yeah, this is very interesting to think about. Okay, how could we make productive use of this enormous amount of heat which is coming out from every nuclear power plant? If you look at it, we turn basically 1,000 megawatts of heat into electricity, and then we waste 2,000 megawatts, pouring it directly into the sea. So it's like a huge waste, right? This has stimulated much thinking over the years about, okay, so couldn't we somehow make use of this heat?
Mm-hmm.
And there are a few places in Russia, for example, and also in Switzerland, where nuclear heat is used for district heating. But it's rare to see that you would be able to take all the discharged heat and make productive use of it, because we are talking about so much heat. A normal district heating system, it will never use 2,000 megawatts of heat, if I'm not mistaken. And then it's a matter of the design of the nuclear power plants. Now you probably have to ask the engineers who know more about this, but as far as I know, you would have to redesign a nuclear power plant if you want to make productive use of the heat. It has to be designed in a different way, and it is perhaps not optimal for electricity production. So as I understand it, it's a bit tricky. But there have been some nuclear power plants which have been designed specifically for heat production, and not at all for electricity production. I know in the Soviet times, in Russia, there were many attempts to do something like that, to build nuclear heat plants, which would be used only for heating.
And then were there less waste somehow?
Then I think you get much less waste heat, because you use the heat. For a system, yes. And then I don't know if engineers have other possible ideas about this, but in most cases, historically, we can say that these attempts to make use of the heat have failed for one or the other reason.
Mm-hmm.
I think one problem has also been that, okay, if you are then installing a nuclear heat system, and then in the middle of the winter, if the nuclear reactor somehow has some incident, has to be closed down for a week or something like that, then you are out of heat during the cold season. maybe there would be solutions to that problem too, but I think that has been one fear.
But it seems really wasteful way of using this source somehow, so that people just say that, okay, we try, but we don't have any solution, so we just put it into the oceans. It seems like our whole system right now, at least in Western world, is the same, that we just take as much as we can, or as much is for us comfortable, and all the rest goes somehow to wastelands or to the oceans.
Yeah, I mean, in this sense, it is a kind of philosophical problem, perhaps. I mean, it's not specific to the nuclear industry.
Exactly.
It's the same with coal power plants, for example.
Oh yes,
So
yes.
we have the same problem there. One other thing that we could say is that, using nuclear energy for district heating is, I mean, to some extent that's attractive. But that would encourage us then to build nuclear power plants very near the places where the heat is going to be used. So basically in the big cities. Do we want to do that? Do we want to have a big nuclear power plant just next to Tallinn or in the outskirts of the capital city? Historically, the intuition has been to build nuclear power plants far away, right, from cities, because there is always this risk that, there might be an accident actually.
Yes, right now in Estonia there are a lot of discussions about where to build windmills, and the instinct is to build them far away, but there is nature, so there are now people who stress that people need energy, so we should put them near people so that we would feel what it means, but not to disturb nature or other species with it. Of course, all these turbines are not maybe so, they don't create so much fear as nuclear energy. So in that sense, if we put it far away, there are still species living there. And so we put all this danger there, they just maybe don't know it. Yeah. Is there something you would like to add? I didn't ask.
Oh, I think we have talked about most important thing now. Yeah.
What would you suggest to people who would like to know more about it, to be able to maybe have an opinion, argumented opinion?
Well, I encourage everyone to discuss the problems with nuclear energy. I encourage nuclear proponents to accept that there are problems with nuclear energy. Instead of saying that it's a totally perfect energy source right now. And conversely, I encourage nuclear opponents to also see that, there might be some good things with nuclear energy too. And then we have to have a constructive debate. Okay, what is most valuable to us?
Yeah, because one thing is waste, of course. This was discussed quite much today also on a conference, and about different technologies and how safe it is or it isn't. And one person even said that it's really safe, that this person said that I could even let people to bury those waste on my backyard. And so next one said, hey, we have solved the problem. We have the place to put the waste. What is your opinion on that?
Well, to me it seems like a huge project for Estonia as a small country to develop its own waste storage facility. I mean, that will be expensive, clearly. I mean, developing it from scratch, and maybe for the use of the spent fuel and radioactive waste from only one nuclear power plant. I don't know how many you are going to build, but there will not be that many, right? So in a way, it seems, there's something disturbing about this, I think, and maybe if you have a rational, purely economic, technological perspective on this, then you'll probably say that, okay, maybe you can cooperate with Finland instead, or with Sweden in getting rid of the waste.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that was the thing here today also, that it costs a lot, and that whatever numbers are given, the history says that they will be always higher. But we see it in with every project, basically, that costs are higher than expected.
But it's very important that these costs are internalized in the nuclear project. I assume that this is what, and I assume here that the government is not going to pay for this, that it's going to be an internalized cost for the nuclear industry itself.
Yeah, that was also one thing discussed on a panel, that there are some things what is supposed to be taken by government, so not by the industry who is going to build, and that's the biggest problem. That, for example, in case of bankruptcy state, or also what was the other thing? The cost also for the power, that there should be some kind of guarantee and things like that, and this is something what are maybe not so openly talked. At least it seems to me that people who are in favor of nuclear energy are not talking about it maybe too openly.
We must acknowledge that nuclear energy is very, very expensive. It's to build a nuclear power plant today, that's going to be so expensive that you cannot do it in a free market. That's not feasible. So you have to somehow get state subsidy for this kind of project. There are some international models for this, which you have probably discussed today, but there's no way around the fact that nuclear energy cannot survive in a free market. I mean, it will be outcompeted by other energy sources. So if you want a nuclear power plant, then you really need to want it. Then you really have to decide, we want this basically at any price. Because from a purely economic point of view, it's going to be expensive.
But how is it in Sweden? Are people happy with it? That it's there?
We have our existing nuclear stations, which are still there. Although a few of them have already been closed down primarily for commercial reasons, actually. And now there are plans or ideas, at least, to build new nuclear power plants. And then it has gradually become clear that this cannot be done in a market economy. It has to be the state has to be involved in one way or the other. Taxpayers will have to contribute to this. There's no other way.
Mm-hmm. And how does it seem? Here, one question what was asked was that should this decision be made by people, like in referendum, not by politicians, because of exactly what you said, it's going to be expensive. How is it in Sweden?
In Sweden there's a very pro-nuclear atmosphere in society. Nuclear energy is more popular than ever in the population, so it has a very strong support, actually. Okay. But the electricity companies are a bit wary because they see that in the parliament there's no agreement really about the need for nuclear energy. And they want, the electricity companies, they want a situation where there's broad political consensus, not only in the population, but also among the political parties, so that you can rely on this broad support over not only 2 or 3 years, but over a decade or maybe 2 decades, because that's what's going to take to build and start up a nuclear power plant.
There is one, let's say maybe a thought, what is very often used, that nuclear energy is a very pure energy. Can this be the reason why people are so in favor of it, or what do you think? What is the reason why people are so in favor of nuclear energy in Sweden?
They are in favor because there's a feeling that it's safe. People trust the technology, even though we have some accidents. And they are in favor also because pro-nuclear debaters have been very successful in convincing the population that there's no alternative. If we are going to phase out fossil fuels, and if we are going to scale up electricity production, there's no other way. That has been a kind of powerful argument. Of course, that argument is very controversial if you talk with experts. If you go to my university, for example, Technical University in Stockholm, there are many scientists and engineers working on solutions which foresee a renewable energy system without nuclear energy. But there's a very interesting debate about the stability of electricity grids. How can you have a stable electricity grid and a reliable electricity supply if you only have renewable energy sources? But the engineers, they have accepted this challenge, and they are working on solutions. So in a way, it's a strange situation. I would say that many nuclear proponents are a little bit they are technological pessimists when it comes to the prospects for developing these stable solutions for renewable energy. So it's kind of interesting situation with how do you look at different technological options.
One thing you said that this stable energy but one thing what was said on the conference and what got applause from the public was that maybe we should use less energy because of this situation where we are, and because of this climate change and environmental crisis and the species dying out, maybe we should change the thinking that energy use is going up, and we should take it down, even forced to take it down. Have been in Sweden these kind of discussions at all, or is it really niche at the moment?
In Sweden, there has been a lot of debate about the future energy growth, future electricity consumption. There are some very radical scenarios where the need for electricity might grow 2 or 3 times. So this has to do with electrification processes. So basically, we want to get away from oil and coal. For example, Sweden has a huge steel industry which needs to be decarbonized. And the idea is to use electricity for this electricity and hydrogen produced from electricity. And over the years, I now sense that these claims that electricity consumption is going to grow very much have become a little bit controversial, and not everyone really believes that this is going to happen or that it is necessary. Because just as you say, yes, we also need to reduce electricity need. So electricity, energy saving is obviously a very, very important task.
Yeah, it's like if we talk about this growth, economical growth, then I personally believe that we should really think about degrowth and go toward that direction, and also whatever plans we do and whatever discussions we have also about nuclear energy, we should put it into that context, that economy can't grow in the sense where how it has been maybe seen till now. And so that is something what I really miss in those discussions, that we are in this climate crisis situation where we have to really reduce using everything basically, and we should not make this economy always growing, and nuclear energy is so expensive. How can it be even possible? So yeah, that was something I thought today. Do you have something else you want to add?
I think now we have talked about everything. Right?
Okay, good. Thank you, Per, for discussing this topic and for coming to Tartu. Thank you, Meelis and Kaia, for helping to make that happen here. And thank you everyone for listening. Ja kohtume jälle.